Now I have one question for you. What's happening in your neighborhood?
Well, good morning. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church right here in Beaumont, Texas, and we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And today my special guest is Dr. Shannon Allen. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you, Pastor Shaw. Thank you so much for having me and giving me another opportunity to share information.
Hey, Doc, I know y'all been working real hard over there at the district, and I know your staff and your team, have put in the hours. So talk to us about that.
Yes, sir. We have been working around the clock in preparation for the start of the 2021 school year. We actually have a transition team, which is composed of district level team members, curriculum folks. We have teachers, we have supervisors, principals, assistant principals, just a whole gamut of team members who have been working to put together our 2021 transition plan, which encompasses the details of what next school year will look like. So, of course, with school starting on August 17th, that's right around the clock. So we are continuing to intensify our efforts in preparation for students beginning instruction on the 17th.
So what type of guidance have you received from the governor's office or TEA concerning the beginning of the school year?
So we receive updates on a weekly basis. Actually, every Tuesday and Thursday, our Commissioner of Education, Mike Morath, actually hosts calls with the superintendents. So during those weekly calls, they're twice weekly, we actually receive updates and information on public health guidance, what instruction can look like, on funding issues. We receive support with possible communications. We receive support on remote instruction and the remote learning platforms, all of the tools that the Texas Education Agency is providing for districts. Of course, we follow all guidance from the governor, which once those orders are pushed down, they are incorporated by TEA. They incorporate that guidance into the actual plans that are sent to, and the recommendations and the guidance that are sent to districts. Also, of course, we are in close communication and close contact with our local health department. Maintain a relationship with them, of course, and they support us as we have identified cases or possible cases in the future and, next action steps. So we're working closely with those entities as we plan and prepare for next school.
Now you said school is about to start on August the 17th. What is school going to look like on that day?
So right now, school will begin virtually for 100% of all of our students. So on August 17th, we expect our students to be engaged, but it will be virtual. The Texas Education Agency afforded districts the opportunity to start off and transition students back to a face-to-face learning environment. So we're taking advantage of that opportunity. So the first 4 weeks of school are virtual for all students. Also, we recently applied for a waiver that the board approved for us to submit a waiver to TEA to extend the virtual start of school beyond the first 4 weeks. So currently we have the possibility of extending that window for 8 weeks. So it is possible that students will attend classes virtually for 8 weeks of school. So they wouldn't actually begin coming to school face to face until the second grading period. Now we're working with the health department. If we need to utilize the second 4 weeks of transition, we will do so. That's contingent upon what do the cases look like in our county? What do cases look like in our area? What is the positivity rate? So we're monitoring that with the health department to determine whether or not we will actually access the additional 4 weeks of transition that are allotted. But once we begin on the 17th, students will all be engaged virtually. One of the things that we were committed to doing once we transitioned to the remote learning platform in March, that was something that no one expected. No one anticipated what would happen as a result of the pandemic. So we established paper packets, our option for parents. We were distributing packets, as well as we had a remote learning platform. Well, we have committed so many resources to ensure that we bridge the digital divide. So we have committed numerous resources to putting devices in the hands of our students so that all students would have the opportunity to participate virtually. So for the start of the school, August 17th, There is no paper and pencil option. All learning will be virtual. We're in the process this week of actually distributing devices. Now, we are committed to putting a device in the hand of every student ultimately. But
Wow.
because the devices that we've ordered close to 10,000 devices, Pastor. Those devices haven't arrived yet. So as we are waiting for them to arrive, we know we still have to start school. So we're putting a device in every family's hand to start the school year. We are also putting MiFi devices, our portable Wi-Fi devices. We have one for every single student. So we have 18,000 of those devices to provide internet services to our students. So we're asking parents, number one, register for school ASAP. Number two, contact your child's school so that you can begin picking up devices if you need it. If they don't need it, we're asking parents to use their own home devices until our devices come in, and then we will begin distributing so that ultimately every student in the district will have a device. So on August 17th, engagement begins, learning begins, even though it's virtual. We're using Google Classroom. Our teachers have been trained in newer technology, Google Classroom as the overall platform for instruction. There will be a combination of live Zoom opportunities, which everyone is trained in learning Zoom in this pandemic. And then there will be opportunities for students to work, independently, checking in with teachers. But the virtual option that all students will participate in will look different. It won't look the same as it looked when we started this whole journey back in March.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask because, in March, when we first went to virtual learning, it was kind of like we all just working this thing out as we go, but now you have a plan.
Yes, I mean, we're developing, figuring out how are we going to execute the best possible platform and the best education for our students and keep them safe. So, for us and for most districts across the state of Texas, we're taking advantage of the opportunity to make certain that we get virtual instruction solid because unfortunately, based on the cases in our area and what we have experienced so far, we anticipate that there will be intermittent closures where we will have to flip to virtual, where, a classroom or a school building, or we don't know what will happen. Maybe the entire district will have to switch to that virtual platform. So this gives us an opportunity to engage students early in that process. So if it happens that we need to switch and flip because of cases in our area, we'll be prepared to do so. It'll be a seamless transition.
Now, parents have the option of either the virtual online class or face to face during registration. So they could pick either one, but to begin, they're going to start virtual, correct?
Yes, that's a good point. Every student is starting virtually. So what we're doing is with that registration process, which parents can go to our website, www.bmtisd.com, and start the registration process if they haven't done so. Scroll down to the middle of the screen and click on that A plus registration link, and they can begin the process. But we were asking parents to declare during that process whether or not you plan to choose virtual instruction or face-to-face instruction. And that information is necessary so that we can prepare for when we actually launch that full-time that virtual option once students come back face to face. Because parents have that choice. If they are not confident or comfortable with their student coming back to school face to face, they have the option to choose for their student to remain virtual for the entire school year. But for us, we need parents to make a declaration so that we can prepare for instruction in either realm. Now, I will share, the most recent information on registration numbers indicate that, around 70% of our parents currently are choosing the virtual option
Wow.
after our transition window. So of those who registered, and we still need so many more parents to register. We probably have roughly around 50% of the anticipated students who've actually gone into the process and registered. And I thank those parents who've already done that. Haven't done so, please log on to our website and get that information completed so that we can use that to prepare and plan. But right now, it's overwhelming that parents are choosing the virtual option.
Hey, listen, and I want to make sure that the parents understand that they need to go to bmtisd.com and go ahead and register.
Yes, sir. If you scroll down to the middle of the screen, there's some blue boxes at the bottom. You have to look. It says A plus student registration. You click there, and it will walk you through the process and the steps needed in order to get your student registered. Parents won't be able to pick up devices until they register students. So we are asking that you get that quickly as possible because device distribution is happening this week. Started yesterday and it's going on through the remainder of the week. So if you haven't registered, you won't be able to access devices if you need it. I want to make certain I clarify that. If you have devices of your own, please, we're asking parents to utilize your home devices so that we can reserve the devices that we have on hand for those students who don't have any. And we're committed to putting one in the hands of every family. But ultimately, once I get all of the devices in that we purchased, every student in the district will have one.
Hey, Dr. Allen, and this is also an opportunity for the parents to sign up for parent self-serve. I always got to push that.
Well, absolutely, Pastor. You can't register without parent self-serve. So that's the actual vehicle through which you go to the website, and it's going to take you to parent self-serve if you've forgotten your login, if you've forgotten your password. And that's been a misperception. There's been some communications out that, we closed registration. Registration remains open. We want our parents to get registered as quickly as possible for planning purposes. However, registration for school year remains open, but you need your parents' self-serve information and login. So some parents have had difficulty actually registering their students, and there's been some communications that it's the system or this. We had one system challenge at the very beginning of registration, which was probably at the end of July, where we had one system challenge that was corrected. Once that challenge was corrected, all parents have been able to get in. But what we found is that, many parents have forgotten their usernames or passwords. So we're trying to work them through that process. But you have to utilize parent self-serve in order to actually go through the process. That's the vehicle.
Okay,
for
so
registration.
now you said earlier about when you start, it's going to be virtual. So now some of the classes will be live, and then some of them will be filmed, correct?
Teachers will be instructed 3 times a week, to check in with their students via Zoom. And then, of course, teachers are also going to be submitting lessons, submitting videos into the platform of Google Classroom. So students will go in, they'll log into their class, access their teacher content and that information, and be able to watch the videos, be able to access the materials, and also submit their assignments. It is critical that students are engaged every single day. We are still working through the details of what student attendance will look like because it will be than how we took student attendance for engagement purposes in the spring. So the fall is going to be a little bit more robust as far as the expectation for students to be on. But they'll receive a schedule from their teachers for when their teachers will be online, for them to check in, for the teachers to give them support and help them with any questions and respond to questions. If they didn't understand the content from a video or didn't understand how to execute an assignment or download an assignment. So that's going to be the overall process for students participating virtually.
Okay, Dr. Allen, in face-to-face instructions, the students switch classes. In the virtual room, will they be switching classes?
Virtual instruction, for example, if I'm a middle school student, I have 7 classes. So that means I will go into my Google Classroom platform and it will have all 7 of my classes listed. Okay. All of my teachers' information listed. So they'll go into each one of those classes to complete the assignments and complete the work, watch the videos, for every single class. So yes, they will have more than one class. It's not just one class. It will be all of the content areas that the students actually would take in a face-to-face environment.
Okay, so will the time be the same if in the face-to-face schools start at 8 o'clock? Will the virtual class start at 8 and end at 3 or 4?
So there's flexibility with virtual school. Okay, we have our regular school day. That's the hours that our teachers will be working. And we're going to push out times when those teachers are going to be available for students to log in and get questions answered. But there will be flexibility. For example, if a parent is working and they know that they can't help their child until the late evening, afternoon hours, then that parent is going to have the flexibility to do so, and that child still get credit for attendance. So we're working out the specifics and the details of it to push out to our campuses and to our parents, but flexibility will be there. Of course, we know in a perfect world, we want our students to, number one, be with us face to face. But in light of the situation that we're in and having to utilize the virtual platform, I just want to make certain our parents understand that there is flexibility if they need to or work with their child outside of the traditional boundaries of the regular school day.
Okay, Dr. Allen, let's just say that if it has to go through the first 9 weeks, the virtual instructions, and I chose to have my child in virtual classes, can I switch after the 9 weeks or before the 9 weeks to go face to face?
Parents will have the option to switch. The switching component would occur at the start of a 9 weeks because of planning. I mean, if you can imagine, Pastor, this is so complicated and intricate what we're trying to do. We're trying to meet the needs of all of our students. We're trying to keep our parents, meet the needs of our parents. We're trying to make certain our staff is safe and comfortable and confident about what we're doing and ensure that everybody is educated in a pandemic. So we are asking their parents to follow through on some expectations. And one of those is if you want to make a switch, you're going to have the ability to do so. However, you're going to only be able to do it at certain times, which would be at that grading period transition time. So they will be able to do so, but just during that transition time.
So Dr. Allen, okay, so some of these classes, these virtual classes will be by Zoom. What type of Zoom security does the district have to make sure that the classes are not hacked or anything like that?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I don't have a response to that piece right now because we were actually discussing that in a meeting today. We have a software called Gaggle, and I can't tell you all the technical pieces of it, but it is a security piece, to protect our students with some websites and internet and emails. But with the Zoom piece, I mean, that's something that we're actually working with my IT director right now to see what pieces we can put in place if we can put things in place to ensure that we keep those classes secure and the information keep kids from Zoom bombing and doing all the silly things that people tend to do. But one of the things that I know is, of course, having parent supervision and parents paying attention to what their child is doing.
Okay, so once the face-to-face learning begins, will the student have the same teachers as they had on the virtual side?
So the expectation is, and that's a great question. Right now, Face you for the most part would have the same teachers. However, since we are building a separate and remote platform for after that first transition week for those students who want to remain virtual, some of them may switch teachers. So every student may not necessarily have the same teachers that they begin with. It just depends on the number of teachers that we need for each platform. If we can maneuver it so that kids can have the same teachers, that's the best thing to do, and that's what we want to do. But I know that's not going to necessarily be the case for several students. So that's just something that parents need to consider and think about.
Okay, so once face-to-face learning begins, will there be a uniform code for our students?
Yes, we have for our elementary and middle schools have a specific uniform policy, and it will be in place. Our high school students, of course, we have a standard dress code, but the uniform policy will be expected for students beginning the second 9 weeks of school. So if we don't complete or don't need the entire 8 weeks for transition, we'll give parents a few weeks to get those uniforms so that when we begin school at the beginning of the second 9 weeks, all students would be expected to be in their uniform.
Okay, so what's the plan to social distance? These kids, they want to get all up in each other's face. What's the plan to have them social distance?
That is something that we are really and truly working toward establishing protocols and systems on our campuses. We are minimizing class sizes as much as we can, 25 for fifth grade on secondary, and then 20 students for the lower grade levels. We're maximizing the space in the classroom. Where we can include 6 feet, we absolutely will. We are asking that not asking, but our students will be required to wear face coverings, face masks, and/or shields, So that is going to be an expectation for our students in fourth grade on up, as well as all of our staff. We're in the process now of identifying, signage and stickers and things to put in the campus to remind students to social distance. We're going to, of course, enforce it with our teachers and our staff, monitoring the supervision of our students, limiting the number of students who are in the hallways, who are in restrooms, just everything that we can possibly do that falls within the guidelines working to do. It's going to be a challenge. I mean, when you look around and you see what's happening in the community, especially with younger students, making them trying to get them to understand, what social distancing is and the expectation that we need to do it so that each person can be safe. It is going to be a challenge. We're going to take notes from some of our other students who started, already face to face and, make adjustments as needed.
Okay, so now you mentioned the PPE, personal protective equipment. Will the district provide masks, shields, or other protective equipment for your students and staff?
So we are requesting and asking that, masks and those face coverings be a part of the students' supply list, like a part of the uniform or dress code. We have additional masks or disposable masks that have been provided to us that, in case there's an accident, a student loses it, a student doesn't have one day, we do have a supply that every campus will have. But we cannot supply masks for all 18,000 students or even 6,000 or 7,000 students on a daily basis. We won't be able to do that. So we are asking parents to make certain that the students come equipped with those masks, and we'll have a supply on hand in the event that, students need one or something happens and they don't have it. Our staff, we'll supply our staff with the necessary equipment, face masks and face shields. But there's so much debate about what's best, face shields or face masks. So we're making certain that we follow the guidelines. But the guidance is changing. We received updated information about some of the health screening information just last week that we're processing and put in our reentry plan and update that information to share with our public and community.
Okay, so that's the next point I want to ask about. What is the protocol for health screening when students come to school? Well, actually, before they get on the bus, I mean, will they have to wear a mask on the bus? And then what's the health screening policy or protocol when they get to school?
So students, well, that's a great question because we can't social distance on the bus. It is impossible. We would never get the kids to school. So if parents choose that option, and we're encouraging parents and families once we begin face to face to drive your children to school. But because we cannot social distance on the bus, we'll have sanitizing stations on the bus, and students will be expected to sanitize and have their face covering on. All students, no matter what grade level you're in, if you plan to ride and participate in BISD transportation, you will have to have a face covering on. So we're asking that parents will be required to screen their students prior to students getting on the bus or arriving on campus, period. And do not send students to school if they have a temperature of 100.4 or any of the other COVID-related symptoms that we are all very familiar with because we see those symptoms everywhere we go, but we'll send letters home to parents just outlining the symptoms and what to look out for. And then if something happens when a child is at school and they exhibit symptoms, we have a whole gamut of information that we go through that students will be isolated, that parent will be contacted, and then they would have to either come back with a positive, with a negative test if they had symptoms and or I self-isolate for 2 weeks. There's just a whole gamut of procedures and steps that our team has taken with the cases that have erupted during the summer to ensure that, number one, we're keeping all of our students and our faculty and staff safe and that particular child gets the treatment that they need.
Okay, so Dr. Allen, so will the students be required, one, on the buses, they got to have a mask and shield. Secondly, will they have to keep that mask and shield on all day long?
Except for during lunchtime, of course, when students are eating lunch, they won't have to have, we'll social distance and spread students out in the cafeteria, but they won't have to have the mask on during lunch. And then I believe during, certain athletic periods or physical education classes, students may not have to have their mask on, but otherwise, they will be expected to have the mask on. And what we're sharing with parents is that it's critical that students follow the safety procedures. If students do not follow the safety procedures, they can be mandated to participate virtually. It is a health and safety issue. So students being foolish, or students not following the guidelines and rules as established, or a student intentionally trying to endanger someone by coughing on them, or not wearing or refusing to wear a mask or face covering, those students would not be allowed to be face to face and would be required to participate virtually.
So if a student just want to be pulling a prank on another student by coughing on them, that is unacceptable behavior.
Unacceptable behavior. And we're communicating that to our parents, and we will make certain, of course, to communicate with our students, but that is not something that we will tolerate, because we're talking about health and safety. We're talking about life and death. This is a serious disease. We have had so many fatalities in our area, and we've had so many people to contract COVID-19. And foolish behavior, even though people say children will be children, but you know what? I believe that children will learn and they can understand what the expectation is. And I believe that our students will follow the expectation, but we will not tolerate students not following the safety protocols at all.
Okay, so you mentioned lunch earlier. So will breakfast and lunch be in the cafeteria or be in the classrooms?
So that's going to be unique for each campus. Campuses are actually producing their own transition plan, because it depends on the layout of the campus, the number of students on the campus, the number of staff on the campus will determine some of those things. But students will have breakfast and lunch. Now, students will also have breakfast and lunch during our virtual transition period at the beginning of the year, similar to what we did for meal distribution this past spring. We will do the same thing at certain feeding sites, so that students will also be able to pick up meals. But the difference is students will only be able to pick up meals if they are enrolled in BISD. During the summer and in March, we were feeding all students, I think age 2 through 18. With the fall coming up, the way the regulations only account for us being able to provide meals for students who are actually enrolled in the ISD. But the individual specifics will vary campus to campus once we come back face to face, because of the number of students and the other factors that I mentioned.
Okay, so if the face-to-face instructions begin, and the campus chooses to have the children in the classroom, will the teachers be required to stay in the classroom with those students?
What I will say is that teachers are guaranteed a 30-minute free lunch. We are guaranteeing that for all of our teachers. So I can't answer that particular question, because again, I don't know what the individual campus information, or the campus campus data, what data is going to support the need for teachers to either be in a classroom or paraprofessionals. I really can't answer that, because it may look different for every campus. But the commitment is, of course, teachers are required to have a 30-minute duty-free lunch, and they will have a 30-minute duty-free lunch. They're also required 450 minutes of preparation time every 2 weeks, committed to ensuring that they receive their preparation time and their duty-free lunch.
So how closely are you monitoring the other local districts who have started this past week? How closely are you monitoring their situation so that you could determine the game plan for BISD?
Well, we network on a weekly basis with the local superintendents. So, in Region 5, and that's the region that Beaumont ISD is in, we meet actually weekly with all of the superintendents. So we haven't had a call since school started. So I'm anxious to hear next week, some of their challenges, some best practices, and some other things that we can consider as we begin to engage the closer we get to bringing kids back face to face. Because some of our local districts actually started school with students coming in face to face and did not execute a transition. So we still have a little time. We still have a little time in preparation.
Okay, now let's talk about the elephant in the room. What are we going to do about Southeast Texas and football?
That's something that is personally it's going to be a challenge. We have cases that are emerging since we started, summer practice with strength and conditioning practice at our high schools. And we are still continuing to have cases emerge as we have brought kids. And that's the only kids that have actually been on our facilities have been kids who have been participating, for the athletic programs. And right now, UIL has pushed, the start of practice and the start of games. They pushed it back, but I'm waiting to see as schools continue to open what is actually going to manifest and transpire. Because I mean, this is it's something else. I will tell you. You're talking about a full contact sport where kids are touching each other and kids are getting COVID-19. Kids are spreading and carrying COVID-19. We have seen COVID-19 cases and had to shut down practice, sanitize and shut down areas because of children who have contracted it just in this short time that we've been working with kids. So I'm curious to see what actually happens as schools continue to open and whether or not we even maintain the stands, or even if UIL maintains the stands, that we will still have football and volleyball. Right now, it's still on the table. It's still being prepared for later on in the season.
Well, it's the parents that we really have to educate, so that because I mean, we like going to the football games on Friday night.
But everybody wouldn't be able to go to the football games on Friday night. Part of the guidance that's coming down, it would be limited with the number of students, the number of fans who would be able to actually go and participate. We're trying to work through a scenario. I know for football to either live stream the football games or get those games posted so they could actually be watched remotely. So I know that the traditional scenario where we're packing in a stadium to see a football game, it definitely wouldn't look like that if we are even allowed to have those games. But right now it's still on. It's still in the plan for right now.
Hey, well, Dr. Allen, listen, let me thank you on behalf of all of your staff. I mean, all the teachers, the bus drivers, and all the support staff that goes along with the district for you making the commitment to them even last year to continue to make sure that they were getting paid and all of their benefits were still in place.
You know what? I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Pastor Shaw. We were, very fortunate that in our organization we were able to do that. And when you think about this entire pandemic and so many people who are out of work, people who don't have jobs and who worried about their livelihood, BISD was able to continue to pay 100% of all of their employees, even though our employees didn't do the same work. They worked less hours. So, I think it's a blessing and I'm grateful that we were able to do that for our team members.
Well, I salute you and all the board and all the trustees who made it happen for the staff of BISD. Hey, in our final moments, Dr. Allen, do you have any closing words that you want to share with those who are watching today?
Yes, I do. I just want to remind, which we're going to be pushing out new school hours for our middle and elementary school students. Those are going to be posted soon, and it is necessary for us to transition a little bit more time between high school and middle school, and between high school and elementary routes and elementary and middle school routes, so that we can get our kids to school on time. So parents should expect to see about a 15-minute difference in the start time and end times for elementary and middle school students. And the last thing I want to share is, this has been the greatest challenge that any of us have faced in public education. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. We're getting some phenomenal questions, from our community, from our teachers, and we're working through planning and making adjustments. The situation is so fluid. We continue to receive updated guidance and information. And I want to thank our community, first of all, for your support and for your grace, as we had to make some really challenging decisions and figure out logistically, what this is going to look like. And I will tell you, I appreciate the team. We have worked nonstop since really since March, since going off into spring break, and the work has not stopped. The work is ongoing. The work is late night hours. I'm calling my team members at 10, 11 o'clock at night every, Friday, Saturday night, Sunday, we call it. I mean, it's a massive amount of planning and preparation going on to execute the best possible and the safest experience, for our students. We want to ensure that our students are successful because at the end of the day, our kids need to read. We need to improve our kids' reading performance. We need to improve our students' academic performance. And we're committed to doing that, but we're also committed to keeping them safe. This time, we need everybody. We need the parents. We need the community. And I'm so glad that our community is working with us as we, transition to start another school year. I really am so appreciative of it. But, keep in mind, keep praying for us, keep our students and our community lifted up, because this is different, but, we can do hard things and we will get this done as well.
Well, Dr. Allen, I want to thank you for taking out the time today. I know you're very busy today, and you got other things that are on your plate, but you took the time to come in to share with us on what's happening in our neighborhood. And so listen. Let me share this with all of those who are watching today. Hey, listen. Put on patience. I mean, the staff at BISD is working diligently to make sure that we have a safe environment for our children, that they have the education that they need. So put on patience, understanding, and let's support the district in what they're trying to do. Again, go and register your child right now. If you haven't registered your child, go right there to www.bmtisd.com. Or pick up a phone and call them at 409-617-5000 and make sure that your child is registered. And then again, look at your child's school list for that particular school. Make sure they have the proper PPE. Make sure they have all of the things that are on their list. And then the first few weeks are going to be virtual. So make sure that they get online and do the online instructions, because it's going to make things better. So once again, I want to thank Dr. Allen for being a part of today's What's Happening in Our Neighborhood. And I want to thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time on our broadcast.
Now I have one question for you. What's happening in your neighborhood?